Excuse me, could you point me in the direction of Scream City? Never mind. I think I found it.
Welcome back, clown fuckers, to another episode of Scream City. I'm your host, Jessica.
And I'm Monica. I myself don't identify as a clown fucker. That's just me, though.
Okay.
I
mean, and I respect that.
Okay.
All right. As long as you respect me and my
choices.
My choices.
Okay.
Yeah.
We respect people's opinions on this podcast.
And kinks. Specific ones.
Yeah. All right. So for those of you who don't personally know us, or if you've worked with us, you're welcome. Giving you a little piece of information, extra of information from both of us. And I'm Monica. And today we're talking, now that we're talking about clowns, but we're all talking about It, the 2017 remake, and It, the original from 1990. I'm genuinely so excited about this one.
Me too.
As we mentioned before in a previous episode, that this movie has a special place in our hearts because Pennywise was the topic of discussion when Jessica and I first met each other.
Yeah, we...
Cue all the ahs.
I know. We probably sound like a broken record, but I had put an OG Pennywise sticker on my locker when I first started at the job Monica and I met at, thinking to myself, I hope this makes me look weird and mysterious.
And it sure did.
And yeah, sure enough, everyone did end up thinking that we were, both of us at this point, weird and mysterious. Yeah. But I love that, as they should.
Yeah.
However, I did recently leave that job, so the infamous Pennywise sticker has a new home, Monica's locker.
It's now on my locker.
And you can look for a picture of the sticker later on our Instagram.
On our Instagram,
at Scream City Podcast.
I recorded a little video of her like ripping it off her locker. She didn't literally rip it, but anyway, yeah. Pennywise will continue to terrorize everyone at work as long as I'm there.
Right. Yeah.
But until then, it's just gonna stay there. But yes, I genuinely love the original movie. It was what made my fear of clowns actually begin. And then I heard about John Wayne Gacy, which a little known fact, which I didn't know if I wanted to mention this now or a little bit later, but it's kind of said that it is inspired by John Wayne Gacy, and I don't mean the entire thing that Stephen King created, because there's like a whole background story as all of his other novels kind of connect to each other, but just because of in that time, people are saying like it's not really a coincidence that John Wayne Gacy's story came about, which for those of you who don't know, John Wayne Gacy is an infamous serial killer. That happened all at the same time that Pennywise, that Stephen King came out with It. So yeah, hearing about that, and then it just made my fear even worse altogether. But then I grew up a little bit more, and my fear just kind of slowly started to fade away. But because I just started thinking like clowns are just theater kids, right? So if you see it in that way, it's actually pretty funny. But I don't know. Talking about the movie specifically, Jess, I want you actually have a little bit of a confession, and I think I've told you before. I just don't know if you remember.
All right.
So I want you to guess how many times I watched the remake, the 2017 remake, in theaters.
I don't know. Looking at your face, I want to say like 12.
Honestly, it feels that way. No, and I'm being completely genuine when I say I watched this movie in theaters a total of 6 times.
Okay. I was close.
You were close. It was halfway close. And I don't know what it was. The first time I watched it was with Melody. We both went to theaters to watch it. And I had such an amazing time watching it that I just wanted to show everyone. So I went with every single one of my friends who hadn't seen it before.
Right.
And we would just go. I really do think that 50% of their revenue that they made off this movie was because
all
of me.
you.
Oh, yeah. It was just all me.
I love that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, okay. I can't really judge because that was kind of me with the Batman.
Except Batman was the recent one?
Yeah.
The one with
Paul Dano.
Yes, Paul Dano specifically for Jessica.
Yeah. No, right. I didn't watch it 6 times, but I did watch it like 2 or 3 times. And it was pretty good.
It's good.
I personally don't remember my experience watching it for the first time, the 2017 one. I like to block out my teen years as best as I can.
But as most of us do.
Right. I do remember liking it a lot. And I feel like anyone who was obsessed with the 2017 remake had some sort of fixation to it.
Right.
I don't know if you did. But
I think I did too.
right?
Yeah, 100%. I think I made it a whole personality trait.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the 2017 one, in like 2017 in general was fun. Like Stranger Things was still pretty new. It came out, and the 80s were just thriving.
Yeah.
It was such a vibe, and I definitely miss it. But I had an immense amount of faith in these like brilliant young actors.
Yeah.
And they did not disappoint. I mean, Finn came from Stranger Things.
That's true. This was when he was like at his peak coming out of Stranger Things.
And I had watched Jaden on the Book of Henry.
That movie's good.
Depressing. I'm a masochist, as many of you know this already, and I watch the Book of Henry just so I can cry because it's just so sad. And Jaden was also on The Lodge, which came out a few years ago.
I was gonna say that came out after.
That came out 2019, I think.
Yeah, and then he was also in Knives Out.
Yes, he was.
Yes,
he was.
I love Jaden. He is such a great actor.
Yes, when I actually went to a preview, like a preview screening for Knives Out, and we didn't know like any information about the movie, and I had just met Jaden that spring, I think, and when he came on screen, I looked at my sister, I'm like, Abby, I know him. I like how I still call them kids, because to me they're always going to be kids,
but they're now like in their late teens, almost. Like I think Finn is 20 now.
No, but
I feel like one of them is 20 years old already. I could be wrong though.
Chosen Jacobs is either 20 or 21.
Oh, you're right.
He's not too like. He's not that younger than me.
Oh my god, that's
and
insane.
Most of them aren't.
I refuse to believe that.
Yeah, I was gonna say most
they're
of them
babies
are
in my
like 4 to 5 years younger than me.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I just love, I don't know, there was just something about the 2017 remake. Again, given, I feel like, depending what generation you're on and depend on how you view things. This movie, when I first watched it, gave me creep vibes. Like, I wouldn't say, like, scared. If anything, I think the inner child in me was just so excited about this movie that I was like, there's no way it can disappoint. And for me, it didn't. Given I've talked to a couple of people who are not a fan, who didn't like the remake. I kind of feel the same way with Child's Play when they remade it with Mark Hamill, which I thought he was actually a pretty good person to help to be Chucky. But I wasn't a fan of the remake. I didn't think it was all that, but it was just the nostalgia that really hit for me, that I'm like, I like Child's Play, the movie. But yeah, so I don't know. But speaking about the kids from the remake, Jessica and I met them at the convention in 2018, the convention that we were both at and had no idea because we didn't know each other at the time. But I met them by doing a group photo op. And Jess, I think you met them individually, right? When you took like selfies.
Yeah. I think I took selfies because girl, I was like 18 or 19. I had a little part-time job working at a popsicle shop. I was broke. I think for 2 selfies I asked my sister for some help, but no, it was pretty cool.
This was my first like convention that I was actually enjoying so much that I was taking out so much money from an ATM that my bank at some point was like, hey, we need to stop you because we don't know where you're at. And I had to call them, and it was pretty embarrassing. But I was thinking about it then. I was like, I feel like it would have been cheaper for me to do individual selfies with all of them, but then I wouldn't have a really cool photo op. But the only kids that were missing from at the convention who weren't able to make it was Finn Wolfhard and Jack Dylan Grazer, right? Gazer, sorry.
Right.
They were so kind, and I almost burst into tears whenever Jeremy yelled back that he loved me, because I was like, I love you guys. I love that. And he was like super sweet.
So this was 2018, right? May 2018 when they came to TFW.
Yeah.
I met Jaden, I met Wyatt, and I think Chosen too. Jaden, I think, was the first one that I, met.
Yeah.
He was sitting behind his little table, and when I tell you, I was so nervous. I was shaking.
Yeah.
And I wasn't talking because I was like super nervous, and my sister was the one kind of talking to him. She was like, hey, like, how was your day?
Your sister at conventions talks to these people. So, I mean, as you should, right? But, like, she makes it look so easy to not seem so starstruck, which knowing your sister, she's probably like, he's just another person. I was like, 100%. I understand that.
Right.
But I'm nervy.
Right. And at the time, I was like, we were still 3 years apart. And I was like 18 or 17. I was like, I think he's cute, But anyway, he made me pretty nervous, but he was cute. Photo came out really cute. And then Wyatt was the second person I met. Really funny story about Wyatt. So I went up to meet him. I took the picture. My sister took the picture, actually.
Yeah.
Hated.
Oh, no.
We walked out of meeting Wyatt. I'm looking at the pictures all happy, and then I get so mad, and I'm like, I told my sister, I'm like, Adri, these are awful. Like, I hate these so much. And she's like, well, then it's fine. Like, we'll just get back in line. And I'm like, I don't feel like going back in line. Like, that's just so embarrassing, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, her being the older sister, of course. She's like, okay, fine. Let me go talk to one of the workers and ask if we can just squeeze in because you didn't like the pictures. And I'm like, no, that's so embarrassing. Like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Don't make people work.
Exactly.
Don't make people.
But anyway, she asked the worker, and the worker was like, sure, as long as Wyatt's fine with it. And he was fine with it. And then, so, yeah, we told him that my sister took the pictures and I hated the way they turned out.
Yeah.
And Wyatt's mom took the photos this time.
Oh.
Yeah, she took the photos, and she was so sweet. She was like, honey, tilt your head a little bit this way. And I'm like, okay. Because I think I don't know.
We love a supportive mom.
Yeah, no, I love Wyatt's mom.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, they were really cool. And
yeah.
And then Chosen, I met him for free. I did not.
Okay.
I don't know if I told you this story.
I feel like maybe.
So my sister went to the restroom, and I was like, I don't feel like going in. You know, I'll just wait right there. And actually, this is a lie. We were walking to the restroom, and I see Chosen waiting outside of the woman's restroom because his mom had just walked in. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, I told my sister, I'm like, oh my God, can I ask him for a picture? And she's like, I mean, you can, but he might say no. I'm like, okay. And so I go up and I'm like, hey, can I get a picture? He's like, okay. And
Okay.
I'm so mad because my phone died.
Oh no.
And so my sister's phone was the only one, not dead.
Yeah.
But she had an Android, like the worst Android ever
right.
at the time. And she took the picture. And so the picture looks very like 2006.
Pixelated.
It's so bad, but it's still I still love the picture. The picture
to those
came out really
Android
good.
users, but
Yeah.
damn.
No shame to y'all, but my sister's
Melody's like, what? I really want a flip phone. Would you disown me if I got like the Android flip phones? And I was like, no, not at all. I was like, honestly, do you?
Right.
Whatever's gonna make you happy. Just don't ever send me photos or
Never.
videos or Snapchats. Just don't do it. And she started laughing.
I love it.
So just diving in, let's go ahead and just dive into the movies, the OG and the remake, and then maybe even mention a couple of things about the book. Now listen, I read a few chapters a while ago, but I will admit I never finished it. If you see that thing, it is the size of 3 Bibles put together.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. But I would like to make it a goal to read the whole thing by the end of this year, which I do think I can do. I think with a little help of audiobook,
Right, yeah.
just because sometimes it makes it a little bit easier, right? But for now, I will compare just what I know from the book to the movies. First, I had to rewatch the 1990s OG one a couple of nights ago, and it's still so good to me. And I take that with a grain of salt because I know a lot of people don't like it, but whatever. And I mean that in my own way. But I know some people will say it's kind of boring, and I can totally see why, because it's so freaking long. It's literally 3 hours. But like, I watched it at night, the lights off, and I was still a little spooked. And I've realized that I think music, when it comes to horror movies and sound effects and just everything in the background, like background music wise, it gives a creep vibe.
Yeah.
And it's the whole like like the and I feel like they play them at haunted houses all the time too, but it's when they start playing like circus music.
Yes.
Like that.
Oh my God, I love circus music.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they play that with every time Pennywise comes out on the screen, and agree with me or not, but I think they chose really well with honestly both actors who played Pennywise. Like, I think Tim Curry was like one of the best people to
execute it.
Yeah, and I think he did so well.
Did you go to TFW 2019?
Not 2019, I don't think.
So, if I'm not mistaken, Tim Curry went to a horror convention here in Texas 2019. I didn't meet him because the line was absolutely crazy. But I saw him, and he looked pretty cool. So yeah, shout out to him.
I do think Tim Curry's Pennywise was a little more on the funnier side.
For sure.
And I
1,000%.
think Bill Skarsgård was just straight up like I'm
terrifying.
a killer clown.
Yeah,
terrifying, which is pretty cool. So it was really cool to like actually note the difference. But have you recently gotten a chance to rewatch the OG?
I did. I recently watched it this past weekend. I think this was my third or fourth time watching it, like, ever in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember watching it for the first time. I do remember thinking, like, oh, wait, I do remember watching it for the first time. It was, like, a couple years ago with my sister. I thought it was pretty good for the 90s and all of that.
I think so, too, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be honest, I love that they're, again, and I know it was the 90s, I love that it wasn't, like, filled with CGI.
That's actually true.
Because as much as I love the 2017 and the 2019,
yeah,
I just feel like a lot of it is very CGI.
Yeah.
But kind of like what you mentioned earlier, this the OG Pennywise, way more comedic.
He's so funny.
Oh my gosh.
He's so
like,
funny.
The comebacks that he makes.
Yes. There's just one scene where I was like, I wasn't dying laughing, but I couldn't stop giggling because he was making fun of, oh my God. It was in the second part because it was when they were already adults. Who was it? I think it was Stan who went into the library to look for Mike. And so he had to wait at the library because he had left with Bill. Mm-hmm. And Pennywise, like, comes up and he's like, balloons everywhere. And then he starts telling those, like, clown jokes where he was like, is your refrigerator running?
Yeah.
He's like, well, you better go and catch it. And that man was just having a ball. Like, he was laughing at his own jokes.
Oh my gosh.
It was just so funny.
I love that. I love both Pennywise, but I feel like OG Pennywise is such like his attire and his physical appearance is so traditional clown.
That's true.
I think I love him for that.
Actually, that's
the modern
true.
Pennywise, Bill's Pennywise. Yes, he's terrifying. But he just looks like a normal guy.
He looks like a normal guy.
He doesn't really look much like a clown. He looks just like a regular. But again, absolutely zero hate. I absolutely love both Pennywise. I just think that the OG Pennywise.
I think they're completely different
for
with trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I 100% appreciate both as well. I think they both did amazing, but I think you can definitely see the different routes that they kind of took in playing like each of them, which I thought was really cool to see. And I think that's 100% true.
I think OG, you said you watched it recently. OG Beverly's bathroom scene. I liked how I feel like that one's more like terrifying. Like the remake where the whole restroom is like covered in blood and all of that. That is terrifying. Yes.
I was going to say, yeah.
But the OG one where, like, what was her name? Vicky Burrows and Matthew O'Connor's were talking to her through the drain or whatever.
Yeah.
I liked that. And Pennywise was also talking to her. I liked that. They didn't really do that in the remake, which that's fine.
I thought they did. Doesn't she say? She does. It does happen because she says, Betty Ripson.
Oh, Betty Ripson.
It's Betty Ripson. And she says, she hears voices in the drain too because she says something like, yeah, and I'm Betty Ripson and I've we've been missing, and Beverly gets really like,
it's been a second since the 2017
but I can definitely see how both of those scenes are completely different. The one in the OG makes it look a little more realistic because of the balloon that pops out, and it's like, oh, that's the amount of blood that fits in a balloon, versus obviously it was a little more exaggerated in the remake, which still super scary, but I'm like, the entire bathroom.
Another thing that I liked from the OG is Eddie's shower scene.
Eddie's shower scene is really cool.
That one was good.
I love, and that's another thing of Pennywise being so funny with like his victims, and when he when the kids have to encounter him, it's so funny.
Jack Dylan Grazer portrayed Eddie very well, very comedic. Yeah. I think all the remake kids were very comedic in their own ways.
Yeah.
I think it would have been very funny to see Eddie in that scene.
That's
in the
true, and something
one.
like that. Yeah, have him encounter. So in both movies, they mention that the history of the dairy settlers, you know how they say like they all disappeared, like all 200 and something of them. In the OG, Mike is the one who is like the history buff and who gets into it. In the remake, they made it to Ben, who's going to be that. But I think in the book, it's Mike who is the historian and who gets really into it and everything. Another thing that I also read is that Stephen King didn't really get a say on, or he wasn't really able to kind of get a say, in the make of the movie in the OG, which is why the OG is not as close to the book as the remake actually is. Yeah, the remake is actually a lot closer to the book than the OG one. And the thing about the OG one is that when it first came out, it came out in 1990, and it actually came out as a mini TV series. So they separated it into 2 different days. I think one came out like on August or September. I don't know my dates, sorry. But it came out one day, and then the next day, part 2 came out, which is when they're adults. Which is also when you watch the movie, they have like those fade out scenes for like commercials. So I thought that was really cool. And then in total, like, I think that's also just what makes it so hard is that there are some scenes that are a lot alike, and then there's some scenes that are just like not it whatsoever. And they were able to get away with actually getting closer to the book with the remake because Stephen King was actually hands-on with that one. So
and he made a little cameo in it too.
He did make a cameo in the remake, which is really funny. With the scene where all of the kids encounter it, I actually love both individually so much. And I think it's the same way that we talked about how Tim Curry and Bill Skarsgård play their roles as Pennywise, like completely different, but they're both so good. I think that's how I feel about the scene in both movies where all of the kids encounter it together. Right. So, like in the original, they encounter him in a photo book, and I think that's like so funny because I feel like that's very 90s. Right. Because it's all like Polaroids and like pictures from like a photo album. And I love it because it's like a moving picture, and then like the way that he gets into their faces, and like it's just so great. And it's really sad, but Stanley gets very like, no, and all the kids are like, yes. Right, yeah. Like, yes, he exists, and it's so sad. And then I like the remake version where they all see him on a, what is it called?
Like the projector screen?
Is it like a projector? Yeah, like in a projector scene.
Oh my God, I love that scene.
And it is so funny.
Every time I watch that scene, the first thing that comes to my mind is he's doing like a L'Oreal like
he's whipping that hair back and forth, and he's giving L'Oreal is what is it? It must be Maybelline. Or how does it go? How does it
maybe she's born with it, or
maybe
she's
born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline.
I love it.
I guess something that the original movie didn't include that the remake did make and is actually part of the book is Eddie dying, which is very unfortunate because I love the actor who plays Eddie as an adult, and I love him so much. I think he's so funny. He was in Black Phone, which I didn't know.
Listen, I haven't really done my research on this specific I don't even know if I should call it fact, but apparently there wasn't so between Eddie, who
you mean Eddie and Richie?
Yes, Eddie and Richie. I did not mean to say Mike. Mike is the other guy. It's like my bad. So Eddie and Richie, there was not a kiss between them because the actor who plays Eddie did not want to kiss a man.
Oh, in like as them adults.
Yeah.
I understand now.
Yeah.
How homophobic.
Yeah.
That's very homophobic.
Very unfortunate.
I mean, given everyone has to stand their ground. I mean, to be fair, it's so hard to defend people who we don't know, obviously, because we don't know them. So he could be all about like, I
don't think so though.
Like, you think?
I think if I'm not mistaken, but again, we need to be more educated on this. So
we did. If we're gonna be talking mess,
yeah,
we're gonna be bringing up these topics.
One thing about in general, the whole takeaway from what I just talked about. Yeah, I love you, Bill Hader. I love you, Bill Hader.
I love you, Bill Hader.
Bill Hader.
I love Bill Hader.
I'm your number one fan. Don't go to my Twitter. Don't go to my Tumblr because I am all Bill Hader. Oh, I love that man.
For all you stand your ground. If it makes you uncomfortable, don't do anything that you're not comfortable doing.
Right.
But don't make it sound so like ick.
Wrong.
Yeah. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. So just let it be.
But again, if you're not comfortable with it.
Exactly. There's a line and there's a boundary line. And as long as you're standing on your boundary line without being disrespectful, then you're good. You're fine. It's all good. But anyway, so yes, actually in the remake, they include Patrick, who is one of the bullies, and they don't include him in the original. Why? I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if they were just trying to cut ties with people. So Patrick is actually one of the bullies that is in the book as well, along with Henry Bowers. It's both of them in the book and in the remake, but they're not in the original. I'm not exactly sure why. But yeah, the thing about Patrick, he actually has a pretty significant place in the book, unfortunately, in the sense that in the book, because it's so big, he actually goes deep into character, not development, but he talks about characters and their history and everything in the book. So it kind of gives you, a point of view for everyone that's in the movie. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of people and characters in this movie. But Patrick is actually one of the bullies that his bullying goes into an extent of like serial killer type of activities. Yeah. So in the book, he gets a little bit graphic on how and what he does in those facts. I'm not going to mention them here because they're a little triggering. So take that as you will. But it's actually cool that they included him though, like his character in the movie, and I'm glad that they didn't show all of the extra stuff they did not need to show, but they give it an emphasis like, hey, there's actually a fourth bully, and he's kind of like the head honcho when Henry's not around, because Henry Bowers is the main dude,
like the leader.
Yeah, and I actually like that they gave a little bit more of a history with Henry in the remake, because they were able to and they had a little bit more time, but they didn't really do that with the OG. The Henry Bowers in the OG is just straight up bully. That's kind of it. But with the remake, they give a little bit of a background, because they show who his dad is and everything. In the movie, Henry's dad is a policeman, but in the book he's a farmer. So I thought that was really cool, and I love the scene. I love the scene where Henry, that sounds morbid, but where he kills his dad. But the scene in the movie is Henry receiving his knife back that he lost in the woods, because Pennywise gives it to him in like that red box with the balloon tied to it, and that is actually a scene in the book. So it's just little things like that you kind of appreciate, I guess, a little bit more for things. So I thought that was one of the cool things that they included. Like, yes, we don't tolerate bullying, but it's kind of cool that they were able to include him and give him his little story in the movie. And then Seth Green is also in this, and I love Seth Green.
Scooby-Doo.
He was also part of my childhood growing up, 100%.
I wish he could come to conventions.
I would love to meet Seth Green. I think Seth Green, we're going to get you on this podcast.
We are going to get you on this podcast.
He was in so many things and like in my childhood growing up, and I love him. John Ritter, I think, is also a really good one. And then Jonathan Brandis, which R.I.P. to a good soul. But yeah, the makeup for the movie for Pennywise took 3 hours for the OG one. Nice. And then for the remake, I think Bill Skarsgård had also mentioned that his makeup also took like 2 hours to 1.5. He said that with time, the more that they did it, they were able to decrease time, but it was still a really long process. Can you imagine sitting in a chair every day for at least 2 hours, 2 hour and a half, and just getting smothered in like
I know David Thornton, who plays Art the Terrifier, or Art the Clown.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
He came to a convention and he was doing a photo op one day.
Yeah.
For one day. And I'm so bummed because I missed my
Art the Clown.
It's not that I was able to meet the actor, but I didn't get the opportunity to meet or to do a photo op with him in costume.
Oh, because that would have been cool.
The makeup and everything.
Yeah.
And I was so mad, but
that's true.
It's okay. And then Jamie Campbell Bower also had to sit.
I love him.
I love him too.
He does. Like, these actors, like, these are the type of things that we mentioned that were like, that I think about behind the set, that I'm like, I really wonder how long that took, or I want to know if that's real. I want to know, like, all of these like diver details. So but the budget for the original film was actually $12 million, which now would go about, that would probably be like 21 million.
Okay.
So it's pretty crazy. And to believe that the budget, you want to guess how much the budget, do you know what like the budget was for the remake one?
Nah, but I know, I'm sure it's more.
Yeah. So it was at 30 million.
God damn.
30 to like, I think they said 30 to like 35 or 40 million. And I can go on forever about like all kind of different facts about both of these movies because I read so much, but I think people like clowns became a bigger thing in like haunted houses or
in just like the horror community.
Yeah, like the horror community in general.
Because I mean I feel like they weren't necessarily thought as like a scary thing back in the day.
That's true.
And then I guess maybe the John
Slowly,
Wayne
but
Gacy
surely
thing.
like they make movies, they find out about serial killers.
I think my first encounter with like a terrifying clown was Zombieland, the first one.
God, I love Zombieland.
I love that scene. And I love that movie too.
We're going to be talking about Zombieland.
Yes, we will.
Yes, it's such a great movie.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, yes, clowns have like a little innocent sort of side to them, but I love that they're able to get, terrifying. Like, for example, Universal Studios, the mascot for Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh, like the little tiny clown?
Is
the one in the
Jack
white?
the Clown.
Oh, it is Jack the Clown.
Yeah.
It is.
Jack the Clown fun.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Yes. Like, again, to each their own, their
But
opinions.
Yeah.
But
I think the OG one is a good one to start off with when you're getting introduced to horror.
mm-hmm.
And then
I think so too.
It's good. It has a good amount of like thriller, horror, comedy. I think it's a good one to start off with.
The way that I love both. I definitely made the 2017 remake
personality
my
trait.
entire personality.
I love that.
100%. My nephew loves that movie.
Good.
And I'm so happy because he has taste.
Yes.
That just shows that he has taste, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I have some lemon pepper steppers that are actually themed, and I'm obsessed with them. Why are you laughing? Are you laughing at my lemon pepper steppers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They are amazing. They were actually a gift for my birthday last year. I'm going to take a picture of them and I'm going to post them on Instagram.
Good.
Because I think they're great.
Yeah, I was looking at them right now too and I was like, they're so cute.
No. My lemon pepper steppers, 3000 that are actually it themed, and I love them so much.
I love that.
They also give off very emo vibes.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it.
We love Vans.
Right. Anywhoozles. But yeah, I think that's gonna cut it here for our second episode of Scream City. Thank you so much for listening. And please tune in to next week's episode because we are going to be talking about Scream.
I can't with you. I can't with you.
We're going to be talking about Scream. I'm so excited. I love Scream. We actually met the cast of Scream, which was unreal. So we'll be talking about all of that too, and just all of the great moments of Scream. That movie.
Oh, and y'all better be sitting down real comfortably and have a little snack and a little drink.
That episode's going to be a solid 3 hours.
Yes.
Yeah. We have a lot to say.
Anyway, thanks again for listening to our podcast, and thank you to Anchor FM for helping us set this whole podcast up as well. Again, follow us on Instagram at Scream City Podcast. And once again, we've been your hosts, Jessica
and Monica.
Stay safe.
And stay spooky.
Oof, that was scary. I can't wait to come back next week.